What if the most important call of your life wasn't a phone call, but a calling? That's what we're going to dig into right now. This life-changing invitation to something more. Who gets it, and what's the real cost of saying yes? Let's start with a feeling I bet most of us know pretty well. Have you ever just looked at your life and thought, I'm just ordinary? Like you're not really cut out for anything all that special? Well, if that's you, you are not alone. Because the stories we're about to dive into, they suggest that feeling might actually be the perfect starting point for an incredible journey. So who gets this life-altering call? Who are these chosen people? Well, you might be surprised. It turns out the story almost always starts with the most unlikely of heroes. I want you to picture this. Jesus isn't hanging out in a palace or a fancy temple. Nope, he's by the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And who does he call out to? 4 guys: Simon Peter, Andrew, James, and John. We're not talking about politicians or big-shot scholars here. These are fishermen, working-class guys with calloused hands who probably smelled like fish. They knew nets and boats, not power and philosophy. You see, they weren't extraordinary in the way we usually think of it. They were simply ordinary men living pretty ordinary lives. And that's exactly the point. Their story isn't really about how great they were, but about the greatness of the one who called them. It's a story that basically screams to all of us that anyone from any background can be chosen for something amazing. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. It actually shows us a pattern, a kind of blueprint for how this whole calling thing works. It's not so much about who you are right now, it's about who you have the potential to become. The Apostle Paul, man, he really hit the nail on the head with this one. He wrote that God chooses the so-called foolish things to put the wise to shame and the weak things to humble the strong. So what on earth does that mean for you and me? It means that all those things you might see as your weaknesses, your insecurities, that feeling that you're not good enough, they don't disqualify you. In fact, they might just be the very things that make you the perfect person for a purpose that's way bigger than yourself. Okay, so we've kind of seen who gets called, but what about the what? What does this call actually feel like? What does it ask of us? Let's get into the real nature of this life-changing invitation. At its absolute core, the call is an invitation. But listen, it's not like an invitation to a casual dinner party. It's an invitation that demands a response. And that response, almost every single time, starts with one really powerful, really hard act: leaving. When Jesus told them, "Follow me," he wasn't asking them to just add him to their to-do list. He was asking them to leave it all behind. So what does this leaving actually look like in our lives today? Well, it can mean leaving behind old habits that are holding you back. It can mean walking away from comfortable relationships that you know aren't good for you. It might even mean leaving a successful career that you've poured your identity into. It's that moment you decide to step away from the life you've built, to step into a future you can't even fully see yet. And let's just be real about this for a second. None of this is easy. Every time you say yes to a new calling, you're also saying no to something else. There's always a price. There's always a sacrifice. And that right there, that's where we face the real test. So, when you get this call, you arrive at this massive fork in the road. There are really only 2 choices, 2 paths you can take, and the stories we're about to look at show the huge difference between them. On one side, you've got the fishermen. Their yes was right away. It was complete, and it led to a whole new purpose. They literally dropped their nets, left their boats, and didn't look back. But then you have the story of the rich young ruler, and his story is just tragic. When he got the exact same call, his response was sadness. He walked away with all his money, sure, but he also walked away from a life of real meaning. For that guy, it all boiled down to one thing. Not his character, not all his achievements, it was his stuff. His wealth was the one thing he just couldn't let go of. And it forces us to ask ourselves a really tough question. What's the one thing that's holding us back? But what happens when we try to have it both ways? When we say yes with our words, but our hearts aren't really in it. When we try to follow a new path without truly letting go of the old one. The answer is in this really powerful image. Just imagine the absurdity of this. The fishermen trying to follow Jesus down the road, but they're dragging their huge, heavy, soaking wet fishing nets with them. Every single step would be a miserable struggle. Every move, a burden. They'd be completely exhausted, frustrated, and just wondering, why does this new life feel so heavy? Where's the joy? And that is the whole point right there. A half-hearted yes is a crushing burden. Trying to move forward while you're still desperately clinging to your past, it's just a recipe for frustration. It's the reason so many of us feel stuck, with no real passion or progress. We haven't actually let go of the net. So this all ends right where we began, with a question for you. A call to a new purpose is always a call to leave something behind. For the fisherman, it was their nets. For the rich ruler, his wealth. What is it for you? What's the net that you might still be dragging, and what incredible new purpose is just waiting for you, right on the other side of letting it go?